Welcome back to another episode of Words That Kill. And today's guest is author Nikki Nelson Hicks, and we are talking about revenge served deadly. And now I'm going to turn it over to Nikki and let her introduce herself. So take it away.
Hi, I'm Nikki Nelson Hicks. I write a lot of different stories, a lot of different genres, but primarily murder is always somewhere in the mix. I do love a good tale of revenge and distribution and just vengeance. I love that. That makes me happy. And you don't get a lot of that in real life. So if I can have that in my stories, it makes me happy.
Okay, so when you're crafting a killer, what motivations are you thinking about, and what types of revenge have you used in your stories?
Weirdly enough, a lot of my killers, I'm thinking of the stories that I've written, are people who are simply trying to get justice. I like that. I like a good redemption arc in a certain kind of sense, in that this person, something bad has happened and they are getting revenge. Like, for instance, in my story, Black Cherry, it's kind of a modern telling of the Cask of Amontillado. It's about a man whose brother is pretty much dies because of the actions of his bad wife. And so the brother goes, one line in it is, God works too slow. Sometimes, I have to be karma. And so he goes and he kills the wife in a way that makes it look as if she's died naturally. I like that. And maybe it's bourgeois. I do enjoy a good, almost justifiable killer. I am working right now on a story where the killer, I don't want to call her a protagonist because she's a psychopath. She murdered her entire family simply because it felt like a good idea. She wanted the money. It was, again, greed. But she's not a good person. And I'm having fun with her, but it's a little bit harder to write a person that really, quite frankly, you're like, they're not good people. And I like to have a little vengeance towards the end of it. So yeah, I guess my killers tend to be, what would you call them? Almost, lawful good, if you want to get all D&D on it. So they're just trying to resolve something.
Okay, so how do you walk the line between justice and revenge, and where does it blur?
That's the thing for me. It gets really scary because no one of my stories, Politics of Children, it's all about these adults who are going back to there's this wooded area, and back in their childhood, they murdered an abusive, one of their friends' father was a pedophile and abusive. So they murdered him and they stuck his body in a well that's back there on that abandoned place. And now that abandoned place is being renovated and turned into housing, because here in Tennessee, everything is turned into housing. And they're thinking about their time as children, how that affected them, how they murdered that man, how that affected them growing up. It's hard. I mean, your average human being who is not a psychopath or a sociopath, that taints you. So that's where it gets really into the question of, how do you take that kind of vengeance? Will it make you feel like you've done something good and you can move on with your life, or are you always going to be stained by it? I have two people, one who she's like, no, the son of a bitch need to go. Some people deserve killing. He needed to be killed. And the other person, it kind of like stunted him. He never really got over the fact that as a 10-year-old boy, he murdered someone. Even though the guy needed to be killing, he was a terrible person. He was stunted. So it's really hard, but it's a lot of good meat for a story.
So that's a good lead into the questions I had on psychological damage and aftermath. So when you're writing the character, and there's obviously an event that precipitates the revenge. So how does your characters deal with the initial psychological damage?
Well, like for instance, in the story of Black Cherry, my main character, he is the bad boy. He's the guy who was the black sheep of the family, and it was his brother who was the good sheep of the family who dies. He dies in prison because he gets put there because something his wife did. He took the blame for it. So he felt guilty being the bad kid. He remembers being at the grave and the mother looking at him, and he just knew in her eyes she was thinking, that should be you in the box. That should be you. So in a way, he's getting revenge for his brother's death, but he's also kind of like getting some sort of justice for himself and elevating himself. So that's for him. That's worked for him. Now, in Politics of Children, these characters, they were done. The elder girl, she's not an elder woman now. She just simply put it behind her and didn't think about it. And that's something a lot of people do. You just compartmentalize and you push it down. You don't think about it. Some people can't do that. They just can't. It becomes a part of them. Maybe it's some sort of ethics thing. Maybe it's just some sort of, I don't know. I'm very good at compartmentalization, as my therapist will tell you. I am very good at it. I put things in boxes and put it away and let it become a tumor later. So maybe that's what happens to some people. They can't take it. They just, it comes out. For my characters, it all depends upon what the story needs. So yeah, murder's not good. As human beings, we don't like to hurt people, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath. Your average human being doesn't want to hurt people, and that causes a lot of stress. I have a friend who worked at the LAPD sex crimes unit, and he's told me lots of times he's a very good interrogator. And the one thing he always told me was that the human body hates stress. The human body hates to lie. And yes, so you can, unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath, and the body will show it. And you can use that in your characters too. The body will show it. And how he always able to crack people was because the body always told the truth. So that was interesting. I can use that in my stories with my characters to show that, no one wants to hurt anybody. They really don't. They really don't, unless, of course, it has to be done.
So have any of your characters manifested in the trip from being a non-murdering human to a murdering human? Have they ever gone into enjoyment of the killing?
No, not yet. I have yet to write finish a story where the person is a psychopath or a serial killer. I have yet to write a story of the serial killer, weirdly enough. Now, like I told you earlier, I'm working on a story about a woman who is a psychopath. She is, as a 12-year-old girl, she murdered her entire family with her boyfriend. And because of her age, she spends like 8 to 10 years in a psychiatric hospital. And in that time, she was able to learn how to fake even being normal even better. She's a psychopath. She likes the thrill of killing, and she's always having to hold it back. The title of the story is going to be Dark Horses, because she's always going to hold back the dark horses, and something's going to happen where she gets to let go of the reins. And that to her is the most freeing, orgasmic thing in the world, because she's no longer having to hold it and have the face and the mask on. She can release it. And it's going to be a fun story to write, but it's nothing like I've ever written before. All my other stories, all my murderers that I'm thinking of on top of my head, yeah, they did it because they had to do it. God, man, I never realized how bourgeois I am. I never realized that. But yeah, I don't like to kill people just for the sake of killing. I don't like horror porn. I don't like that kind of stuff. If my people kill, they kill because it's to avenge something, to right some kind of wrong.
Having written a few psychopaths, so it's interesting to explore the motivation of those characters.
So what kind of motivation have you found for psychopaths that are the best?
It's kind of like I've always gone through the impulse, the uncontrollable impulse, or the obsessiveness of it.
Mm-hmm. Depends what kind of killer. Whether they're they get into the procedural killer,
and
or
the excuses or the justifications they make.
They always do that.
Yeah. That's the interesting part for me. I mean, and of course some of my characters have been like demons and
Oh well.
cosmic monsters, and
Well, yeah. You got a demon or cosmic monster.
There's just their nature sort of
Yeah,
vibe that I go with them. So
yeah, you can't blame a cat for killing a mouse. That's just its nature. It
yeah,
it doesn't think, oh my God, the mouse probably has babies waiting for it. No, it doesn't think that. It's thinking, smash, kill. Yeah.
dinner.
Dinner or toy. My cats think mice are toys or presents. If a cat comes up to you and looks at you in the eyes or is dropping you something, I assure you it's probably something dead. So that's fascinating. I haven't with my psychopath. She likes it. For her, it's power. But most female psychopaths, it tends to be, well, actually all psychopaths. When you look at serial killers, it's all about power in a lot of ways. Oh, I do love a good. I love serial killers. I like the idea, the history, the stories behind serial killers. But even, as we said earlier, after a while, it started. Even serial killers become the same thing over and over again. After a while, you start looking in their backgrounds. Did they have a TBI? Did they have some kind of frontal lobe injury? Horrible child abuse.
Yeah,
That kind of thing. It's the ones who didn't, like
it's the
Dennis Rader. Utterly normal childhood and no frontal brain lobe.
It's like what triggered it. And that's the interesting part.
Because he's a sick son of a bitch. He's terrible. Oh my gosh. I mean, I think he's worse than Ted Bundy, and Ted Bundy was terrible. And Ted Bundy himself had a pretty normal kind of, although unless you want to get into the whole maybe his granddaddy was his daddy idea. That's one of the theories. And his mother obviously had all kind of trauma, from what I've read in interviews with her. But in the end, his home life was fine, even though his childhood friends all said he was very, very weird and never could connect to people. So when I hear people can't connect, that makes me think, are they on the spectrum? I always worry, was that person just on the spectrum and for whatever reason never learned how to connect to people? And if humans can't connect, they're going to lash out. And I found that to be very, very true.
Okay, so what kind of consequences have your characters experienced after killing someone?
So far, these all been short stories, basically relief, and they just go off on their ways. There's another story that I wrote called Brother Marvel's Old Time Revival. And the whole point of that was I wanted to write a story about a guy who does an old time revival, and of course, it's a huge shill show. And this is set back in the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, when revivals were big. And anyway, in the end, some of the people who took some of his medicines and their children died because the medicines were basically poison. They find him, and they kill him. They get their revenge. So these people, again, it's just relief. I guess, yeah, in all the characters so far that I have done, they have found a sense of relief, except for the young man with Politics of Children. He was still very much feeling grief and guilt. But most of them know, because they are doing this because of righteous anger. So afterwards, they feel fine. They're fine because they did what they had to do, and they go on with their lives.
Yeah.
And being a short story, you don't really go that deep into the aftermath. So
would you say your characters are justifying their actions to themselves?
Exactly. Because as far as they're concerned, this guy needed killing.
Okay.
You sold me a bill of goods. You said that Jesus told you that this medicine was going to save my child, and it didn't. It actually killed my child. I'm tracking you down, and I'm going to kill you. I'm going to send you to Jesus. And they do. They track him down and they kill him, because he'd been doing this entire thing all across. By the end of it, all of the victims had pretty much gotten together in one place. There was like 100 of them waiting, and they just tear them apart.
Yeah, it sounds like a couple of your stories have used kind of the mob mentality as well.
Yeah, I guess so. Never really thought about it, but yes.
Courage in numbers.
Especially with that one. The other ones, like with Politics of Children, was only a handful. It was like 5 kids, and they were trying to defend their youngest friend. That's the only story that's actually based upon an actual thing that happened in my childhood. We didn't kill him, but we knew about a guy in the neighborhood who was molesting one of our friends. And this is so weird, because we never told any adults. We never told anyone. We knew it was happening, and we had seen what had happened when adults did contact, and nothing happened. This guy still got out because he was a big guy in the church, so he always got wiggled free, and every time he'd come back and to molest this kid. So we used to do things like hide her. We did all kinds of really crazy things. We were kids. We didn't. I remember one day telling my mom that, yeah, so and so, he's a pervert. We call him Captain Pervy. And she's like, I'm sorry, there's a freaking pedophile in my neighborhood. Yeah, well, you didn't tell. No. So when I wrote that story, I decided I was going to write that story based upon what a part of me kind of wished we could have done, is kill this guy. We didn't. I have no idea what happened to that guy. But that kind of, yeah, you're right. With this one with Brother Marvel, that's very much mob, because they all get together and they get him down. And then with Politics of Children, it's only 5, but they're just children. To me, it was the idea of the simple, the purity of children. Of you're either right or you're wrong. There's no thinking about it. This guy got to go. There's no. They don't think about that. They're children. They're not thinking about the further. They realize this guy's got to go. He's a threat, and they kill him. There's nothing more scary than purity, quite frankly. Man, kids, they don't think about the ethics of it. They just get it done. It's fascinating. So,
yeah, I've gone a little further with some of my kid killers, but yeah, if anyone's read my Alice in the Basement story, they understand that.
Oh my, Alice, I gotta look for that. Okay, I'm sticking on my list. Okay.
Actually, there's a video recording on Jeanette Andromeda's YouTube channel.
Ooh,
I think I have it on my website as well. She did an excellent job reading the story and animating it.
Ooh, and I will definitely have to go and find that.
Oh. Yeah, I think I have it embedded on my website. If I don't, I should.
Oh, you should, yes.
Anyway, so would you consider your killers heroes, anti-heroes, or villains?
In some heroes. All of my guys are heroes, pretty much. Heroes are, except for the guy probably in Black Cherry. He's kind of an anti-hero because he knew exactly what he was doing. He's a bit of an anti-hero because he is a bad guy. He's not a good guy. He just wants revenge for his brother. But the others are all pretty much heroes as far as they're concerned. They're heroes. They saw something needed to be done and took care of it when nothing else would take care of it. A vigilante can still be a hero. Even a hero, not an anti-hero or that. Yeah, they're heroes. They're all heroes. I haven't written yet a really bad killer except for the psycho chick. I'm not finished that story yet, so I don't really count that one yet. But yeah, heroes.
Okay. So when you're writing the confrontation for the revenge and the death scene, do you prefer to have it up close and personal, or is it more of a detached sort of a scene?
We're up close and personal. They need that closure. That's the point of this, for them to get the revenge. They need that closure. And so it is very, very up close and personal. Okay, so especially in Black Cherry. Yeah, very up close and personal.
You prefer a particular weapon, or have you varied it up?
Oh, varied. Okay, in Black Cherry, the weapon he uses is basically her car. It's the last thing she has from her marriage to his brother, is this beautiful car, and she had it done in a special shade of paint, Black Cherries. It's her very favorite colors. This really weird kind of metallic red color. Anyway, so it's a very, very hot day. It's the hottest summer of the year. He gets her in the car. They get drunk and do a lot of drugs. She passes out. He lays her down, closes the door, and leaves because he knows that the heat of the day is going to kill her. He just wipes everything down and walks away. He uses the car and the weather, maybe in his own little way, using God, making God finally get off his ass and actually get the job done to kill this chick, to get some kind of vengeance. And for the other ones, in Politics of Children, they beat him to death with rocks and sticks. They put him in. They trick him to fall into one of the wells that's in this abandoned area, and they just beat him to death until he finally, and they cover it up so that he dies in darkness. So I guess I like to use whatever's around me, I guess. kind of a nature thing. I haven't used anything. And the Nikki, of course, I use knives and guns a lot, and chickens. A lot of zombie chickens. They came in handy. Oh, and monsters. Do love a good monster. I had in the Nikki stories. I had a monster called the Boo Daddy, and he comes to help Jake, and he basically rips this one guy's head off and blood spewing. He becomes like a guardian. So yeah, monsters are good. Monsters are great to use as weapons in their own little way. And of course, poisons. I like a good poison because it gives you time, and also it's fun to play with. It's the what they call it, it's the intelligent murderer's weapon of choice. So poisons are always
what's
good.
the most creative death you've ever done for a character?
Nikki stuff. Oh well, I had one poor guy get sacrificed to a god, and his body was splayed over this pit, and down in the pit are all of these buried flies that eat flesh. They're basically demonic flies, and he's pulled across it. His guts are ripped open, so the flies are constantly biting at his guts. His mouth is full of salt, and he's basically being tortured and slowly dying. And it was really sad because it was gruesome and horrible, and it's my protagonist's best friend, and he ends up having to kill his best friend to relieve him of his suffering, of course. But also it happened to be the protagonist's birthday. So on his birthday, I make him kill his best friend who's being sacrificed to a weird chicken snake god. So that just came out of nowhere. That was weird. And yeah, I often think about that sometimes because that was just, okay, whatever. There was no reason to kill that guy, but I needed it for the story. We're kind of like really not very good gods. We're like the worst gods ever. We really are. So
yes, my poor characters don't like it. Sometimes they sacrifice themselves though. So I recently had a character. Story. Yes, I recently had a character do that. I was going to save her, and she decided, nope, I'm dying.
I'm dying. The narrative needs some more blood to grease the wheels.
Yeah, basically, that was probably the only story in the collection that had a happy ending.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
Well, a relatively non-bloody ending. There's some happy endings, but they're kind of strange happy. So,
as long as your hero gets some sort of compensation in the end. I mean, something. I mean, poor Jake Yishinheji, I torture him for six stories. At the end of that little cycle. And it wasn't until one day I sat down and thought about it. That entire cycle takes place in 1 year. I just completely destroyed this guy's life in 1 year. And it was great fun. I had a good time doing it. But poor guy, he didn't deserve it. He just walked into this mess. I walk into my life. That's pretty much happens to me all the time. I walk into messes all the time. So, yeah.
Okay. So what's the oddest thing you've researched in relation to a character death?
The oddest thing I had to research would probably be with the Jake Yishinheji stuff, having to look into a lot of different folk tales from South Carolina and Louisiana dealing with voodoo. That's probably some of the weirdest stuff I've had to do, especially with the Boo Daddy, because I had to go digging through a lot of different legends and stuff just to get more just gristle for the mill, really. And then, of course, what was it? It was something I was doing with poison. I remember one day my husband came home and I had all these books of poison on the bed, and I'm just taking notes. And he's just like, look, you knew when you married me. You knew, okay, this book was going to be part of the stuff here. Poisons take a lot. They take a lot of research to do. Poisons are fascinating, especially what they do to the human body. Jesus Christ, we are weird. We're not a well-constructed.
Yeah, that's the one thing I have against some shows when people get poisoned, is that they recover like perfectly, and it's like, no, they would have long-term side effects from some of this stuff.
Lifetime, yeah. Your liver's never going to be the same. Your kidneys, no, they're never going to be the
Yeah,
same.
it's like they were near organ failure. Now they're fine. It's like, no, they wouldn't be.
No, they are the rest of their lives. They're going to be in pain, chronic pain, because of what this person did. I mean, I've read about, of course, as we were talking earlier about spouses, this woman who was slowly murdering her husband with, sure I remember what it was. It was a heavy metallic poison, heavy metal poison. And the poor guy, he was, but when they finally stopped her, because she's bringing him soup into the hospital, crazy.
That wasn't Italian, was it? Or
it may have been. Yes, I think it was.
That seems to be a favorite of killers, thallium.
Yeah. Anyway, so, but the deal is he didn't die, but he spent the rest of his life in terrible pain. I mean, kidney failure, and I think he died eventually. I'm not sure. Look into that. But yeah, it just, no. You've got to do your research. There's a guy, his name is D.P. Lyle, Lyle, and he's a forensic pathologist. He's written several books about that. And he answered one of my questions. I had a question on my Stone Baby story, to which I asked him. He said, no, a woman can't stop labor. Labor, you just, no, I'm having it stop. I need it for the story. So I'm sorry, I don't care. Science be damned. My narrative must have it where the labor stops. But I don't think that's true. I think a labor, because Stone Baby is a true thing. I mean, it's an actual medical condition. So I like him a lot, but I didn't take his advice because it didn't fit my story.
Yeah, well, you can take poetic license with stories as long as it's not too unbelievable. So.
Exactly. Well, my husband's a former Marine, so he helps me out a lot with like fight scenes. We'll actually reenact fight scenes. He helps me with guns. Thank God. I had a gun in my, what story is that? The problem in Gruff Springs. And I have it where I have the guy shoot it several times, and my husband's like, you realize that's a single shot, right? I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, that's a single shot kind of thing, because it's an old story. I had to go back and rewrite all that stuff. It really pissed me off. But do your research, because trust me, people like him will read it and go,
yeah, older guns don't work like modern guns. I had to research them for a Victorian story, and I had to find the perfect gun for the perfect era, and figure out how to fire it. Would it have kickback?
Yes.
All the lovely stuff that you need to know when someone's firing a gun.
Somebody's firing a gun, and yes, no, it's not fun at all.
But luckily, I found several YouTube videos that were demonstrating these things.
Thank God for YouTube and Google. You have no idea how much. Cause like for the Jake Yishinheji stories, I have a lot of stuff in the swamps. I really wanted to go to the swamp, but unfortunately things happen. Can't go to New Orleans all of a sudden to go to the swamps. So thank God for YouTube videos of watching swamps. Just watching swamp tours and taking notes of what's in the swamp, what animals are in the swamp. I wish I could have had the smells. I actually contacted people who lived in New Orleans to ask them, what does swamp smell like? What do they smell like? I need to know the smells.
Yeah.
The smells are very important to me.
Yeah.
And
swamps stink.
They stink. They stink. They told me, have you ever been to Old Hickory Lake here in Tennessee? I'm like, yeah. Like that. They smell bad. And so does it stinks. It's got a lot of death and decay all around you.
Okay, and on that note, I think we'll wrap up the interview, and I'll let you tell everybody where they can find you and your books.
Okay, cool. Okay, hi, I'm Nikki Nelson Hicks. You can find all of my books on Amazon. The stories that I talked about today, Black Cherry, Politics of Children, and Brother Marvel's Revival, they are in these Paul Bishop books. Soon I'm going to put them into a thing of my own, but that's not happening until next year. All of my stuff is available on Amazon, or you can go down to my little website there. I'm available on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all of them. I'm everywhere. And thanks. This has been fun.
All right, great chatting with you. And her links will be in the description, so be sure to check out her books. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Words That Kill.
That's a great title.